All right, good afternoon, everybody. Happy Sunday. Welcome back to another episode of Pathagonia. This is Cole. Today, I'm going to go over dermal tumors from Kurt's notes. So I'm getting ready to start my second week of my dermatopathology rotation. So I can say I officially have 1 week of experience of looking at derm cases and trying to help sign them out with my staff. So I'm guessing a lot of these entities from this dermal tumors notes section are going to be things that you commonly see in practice, and we'll just go from there. So first up, we've got a classic dermatofibroma, also known as a benign fibrous histiocytoma. And it's this dermal-based proliferation of typically bland spindle to histioid appearing cells. And it can appear like a blue haze at low power. You see this kind of like well-circumscribed blue haze. Tumors are grossly circumscribed, but microscopically have irregular, often jagged borders. You have collagen trapping, shown here in this inset, often at the periphery. And you have overlying epithelial basilar induction with hyperpigmentation. It may mimic a basal cell carcinoma. And then evidence supports both neoplastic and reactive etiologies. There's many variants of a dermatofibroma. You can have epithelioid, cellular, or with monster cells, and more. Monster cells reminds me of a video that soon to be PGY1, Sarika Halstead, recorded and put on our channel whenever she rotated through our department, going over the monster cells of dermatofibroma. So if that sounds interesting to you, check that video out. It's really well done, Halloween themed. All right, some stains for dermatofibroma. You can have factor 13A positivity, CD163 positivity, histiocyte markers, and CD68 positivity. So those are histiocyte markers, negative for CD34. So a classic way to tell dermatofibroma, often called a DF, versus a DFSP or dermatofibrosarcoma protuberans, is this IHC, particularly factor 13A positive in DF, CD34 negative, and then vice versa for DFSP. Moving right along to DFSP. So DFSP or dermatofibrosarcoma protuberans is a spindle cell tumor proliferation of monomorphic spindle-shaped cells with deep dermal and subcutaneous involvement, arrayed in storyform or cartwheel patterns. Lesional cells typically lack significant atypia and pleomorphism, and subcutaneous areas typically show honeycombing fat entrapment or pearls on a string. DFSPs are defined by the translocation 1722, which is a rearrangement of COL1A1 with PDGF beta. And if it loses its storyform pattern, it can become herringbone pattern. You want to maybe consider that it's undergoing malignant transformation to a fibrosarcoma. So stains for the DFSP, like we already talked about, diffuse positivity for CD34, strong and diffuse, and factor 13A is going to be negative. All right, moving right along. Neurofibroma. Neurofibroma is a benign peripheral nerve sheath tumor composed of Schwann cells, fibroblasts, perineural-like cells, and residual nerve axons within an extracellular matrix. They're sporadic in about 90% of cases, and others are syndromic and can be associated with NF1 or neurofibromatosis type 1. Neurofibromas are characterized by loosely arranged spindle cells in haphazard arrangement, poorly defined cytoplasmic borders and processes with small hyperchromatic wavy or buckled nuclei as seen here. The stains, you have S100 positivity and about 50% of the total cells are Schwann cells, and CD34 positivity with admixed spindled fibroblasts. Neurofilament protein highlights the intratumoral axons. So I've heard of DF at low power is commonly like this blue haze, and when it's more pale, you can maybe think it could be a neurofibroma. So you might want to go down on high power, check out the morphology of the cells and see what you're dealing with. Next up, another common one, I saw this a lot, just this in my first week. So it's a fibrous papule, or also known as an Angiofibroma. This is a solitary, dome-shaped, flesh-colored papule on the nose or the central face, with scattered bland spindled to stellate and multinucleated fibroblasts. There's dense collagenous stroma with ectatic thin-walled blood vessels, as seen here. And if it shows enlarged hyperchromatic staining nuclei with small nucleoli, there's scant amounts of eosinophilic cytoplasm, and you may want to consider pleomorphic fibroma in that case. Next up, Fibrous Hamartoma of infancy. So this is a benign, superficial, fibrous lesion occurring during the first 2 years of life, as the name would suggest. There's 3 components in organoid growth pattern. The first is intersecting bands of mature fibrous tissue, comprising spindle-shaped myofibroblasts and fibroblasts. 2 is nests of immature round ovoid or spindled cells within loose stroma. And 3 is interspersed mature fat. So that's a fibrous hamartoma of infancy. All right, next up, AFX, or Atypical Fibroxanthoma. This is a mesenchymal neoplasm showing no specific lineage of differentiation, with highly atypical and pleomorphic dermal-based proliferation of spindle to epithelioid appearing cells. There's scattered large, bizarre-appearing multinucleated cells often seen, and numerous mitoses, as you can see one here in this image. You can appreciate the pleomorphism. Numerous mitoses, including highly atypical ones, are easily found. You can have, with the AFX, you can have subcutaneous invasion, PNI, LVI, and tumor necrosis. Implies more aggressive behavior, and such cases are typically diagnosed as pleomorphic dermal sarcoma. So stains are essential to exclude more specific diagnoses. AFX are negative for melanocytic markers and cytokeratins, P63, muscle markers except for SMA, and vascular markers, but they do stain positive for non-specific markers like CD10, CD68, CD99, and vimentin. An additional diagnosis is fibroepithelial polyp, or acrocordon, also known as a skin tag. These come up a lot. Usually the clinical history is pretty helpful. They are expecting that's what it is, but you definitely want to check it out and make sure there's nothing more worrisome within the polyp. So acrocordons, or fibroepithelial polyps, skin tags, are fibrovascular cores composed of loose to dense connective tissue devoid of adnexal structures. Also, you can have a sclerotic fibroma, which is circumscribed, unencapsulated dermal nodule composed of thickened, hyalinized appearing collagen bundles in storiform and whorled pattern with prominent clefts. All right, next up, we've got Neuroth. I have never seen one of these in practice yet, but it's only my 2nd year of residency, and I'm sure I will. So this is a rare dermal tumor of uncertain histiogenesis, composed of epithelioid cells and multiple nests divided by fibrous septae. The epithelioid to spindled cells with abundant pale eosinophilic cytoplasm are arranged in nests divided by dense fibrous septae. The stains for a neurothekioma are often positive for a variety of nonspecific markers, including NKI, C3, NSE, and PGP 9.5. All right, moving right along, granular cell tumor. So this is a benign tumor of putative Schwannian origin, composed of cells with abundant granular cytoplasm. Overlying granular cell tumors is often pseudoepitheliomatous hyperplasia, which can mimic or kind of look like squamous cell carcinoma, so you just want to be aware of that. Stains for a granular cell tumor are PASD positive granules, strong and diffuse S100 staining, SOX10 positivity, as well as calretinin and CD68. All right. And of course, in the skin, like almost anywhere else in the body, you can get a leiomyoma, which is a benign smooth muscle tumor. Both are often painful, like a pilar leiomyoma or an angioleiomyoma may be painful, especially the pilar. So a pilar leiomyoma is ill-defined dermal nodule composed of haphazardly arranged smooth muscle bundles and fascicles, and the fascicles often dissect between dermal collagen. Angioleiomyoma is well-circumscribed neoplasm composed of mature smooth muscle cells arranged around prominent blood vessels. Kind of makes me think of like an angiolipoma, same concept, right? Instead of adipose tissue, you have smooth muscle surrounding those blood vessels. You can have numerous mitoses, diffuse marked atypia, and necrosis, and that'll make you think of a leiomyosarcoma. So important category to recognize, I kind of learned this past week, are scars. So oftentimes in dermatopathology, if people have excisions or prior biopsies, if it was a while ago, they could have scar tissue. And the way you can tell that is scar has dense collagen fibers that run parallel to the surface with small perpendicularly oriented vessels. So the collagen fibers run parallel, and then perpendicular or up and down are the blood vessels often. And then in the scar, you're going to lose your adnexal structures. Another type of scar you can have is a keloid scar. And this is a dense proliferation of thickened hyalinized collagen bundles in the dermis, as seen here. Decreased vessels compared to conventional and hypertrophic scars, and they classically occur on the ear. All right, moving right along, hemangiomas. These are benign vascular tumors composed of blood vessels lined by plump to flattened endothelial cells with no atypia. So there's a few different types of hemangiomas you can have. One is a lobular capillary hemangioma or pyogenic granuloma, which can be exophytic, with numerous small capillaries radiating out from larger central vessels, and it may be ulcerated. You can also have a cavernous hemangioma, which is non-lobular, poorly demarcated proliferation of large, cystically dilated vessels filled with blood, or an infantile or juvenile hemangioma, which is characterized by onset during infancy, rapid growth, and spontaneous involution. Appearance changes over time with tightly packed small to medium-sized vessels with unique immunoprofile of placental vasculature, and these juvenile or infantile hemangiomas will express GLUT1. All right, next up we've got glomus tumor. So solid nests of round cells with round uniform central nuclei, as shown here, closely associated with variably sized blood vessels, most common in the distal extremities, particularly the nail bed, and typically small, red, painful nodules. And a glomus tumor is going to stain with SMA. All right, a more worrisome entity is angiosarcoma. So angiosarcomas are malignant neoplasms showing morphologic and or immunophenotypic evidence of vascular and endothelial differentiation. Angiosarcomas most often occur on the scalp or the face in the elderly, sun-exposed, or breast status post-radiation. It's an aggressive tumor that's treated surgically, and it has an infiltrative, poorly circumscribed architecture with variable vascular formation. Often cytologic atypia and mitoses are present, and it's going to stain with your vascular type markers CD31, CD34, ERG, FLI1, and epithelioid angiosarcomas may be cytokeratin positive as well, so good to be mindful of that. So some more diagnoses. Kaposi's or Kaposi's sarcoma is a vascular neoplasm caused by human herpes virus 8, often associated with AIDS, and has jagged interconnected vascular channels in the reticular dermis. It grows into normal vessels and classically presents a promontory sign, which is kind of pathognomonic to Kaposi's or Kaposi's. And next up, we got papillary endothelial hyperplasia or Masson's tumor. So this is a reactive intravascular endothelial proliferation, circumscribed intravascular fibrin thrombus with associated papillary structures, lined by endothelial cells in single layer, may form an anastomosing network. And that's it, folks. We did it. We made it to the end. I apologize if you could hear my dogs chewing on their toys in the background, but they are entertained, and I hope you are all entertained as well. And I hope you have a good day. Thanks for the support. See ya.